welcome. Oh, cool, I'm not there. 1 second. There I am. Sweet. Welcome everybody. It's just little old me tonight, and that's alright. Because what we're talking about today is one-on-one conversation training. How do you talk to your coworkers about forming a union? It's the first step to forming your union is learning how to talk to your coworkers. It's super important. And what we're going to do now is break it down into little tiny pieces, go through it step by step, and give you the reason why. Like, why do we do it this way? Why is it important that we address it this way? How does it help us? Because if we just go to a coworker and we say, hey, you want to be in a union? They could have a multitude of reactions, which could include outright refusal or upset. So what we're here to do is teach you what we know works best so that you can do it to your coworkers. So let me get back to the streamer side of things. I did have a screen share going, but I don't have it working right now, so give me 2 seconds. I just have to add it. But how are y'all doing? If there's anybody in the chat. Make sure all my other windows are minimized. But if you're in the chat, say hi while I figure this out. Hold on. Forget that. I should have done this earlier, but you want to know what? It wouldn't be a stream without me having to do some tech check. What's up, Alina? Good to see you again. Great, we got this going. Hell yeah. Alright. Let's just make it pretty. So again, what we're talking about today is the organizing conversation. We're doing one-on-one training. I get asked about this all the time. Like, can you teach me how to do this? And that is what I am here to do today. Just gonna shrink me a little bit. You don't need to see me. But yeah, so if you have questions about anything I'm talking about, we will have time at the end, but I'm going to get through all of this so you have all the information, and we'll go from there. So if you do have questions, type them in the chat. I will get to them towards the end. I'll turn down the music so we can focus. This is important stuff. All right, so we're talking about one-on-one conversation training, organizing conversation training. How do you do it? Why do you do it? So this is ultimately the strategy to win at a studio. The first thing we do is build an organizing committee. And an organizing committee is a group of you and your coworkers who are very much in support of a union and are interested and available to get the work done that is necessary in order to achieve your union. So you might encounter a lot of people who are supportive of a union, but they don't necessarily have the time to commit to the cause, and that's okay. We still need their support. That is still ultimately very important to what we're trying to achieve, but we start with our organizing committee, and that could be one person, that can be 3 people, that could be 20 people, that could be 100 people. It depends upon the size of your company and how many people are willing to help. But once we have that organizing committee, we build a supermajority of support with our coworkers, and that supermajority of support is ultimately what is going to lead us to win at your studio. So that would be 60% or more of your coworkers who are in favor of a union and are supportive and willing to vote yes. And then after that, once we have reached that supermajority of firmly assessed yes support, we will go quote unquote public with our union, meaning we will tell your boss that we want to be a union. And that is when your employer has the opportunity to voluntarily recognize you, meaning they say, yes, I believe you, you are a union, you have the support that you say you have. Or they can force us to another vote with the NLRB. So we vote once by signing authorization cards to prove that we have the support that we have, and then we vote again if your boss so decides. And we go to the National Labor Relations Board and we have a secret ballot where no one ever finds out who it was that voted in what particular way. But we vote again through that election. So again, your boss has like two options there: voluntarily recognizing us and we get to negotiating, or forcing us to vote again, in which case we negotiate again, or we get to negotiations on the other side of it. And then we start bargaining your first contract. So it is a bit of a long road, but we'll get there together. So one-on-one conversations are absolutely 100% necessary at every single stage of organizing. And you're like, oh, but once we have support, like, why do we need to keep talking to our coworkers? Well, we build our organizing committee, and the way that we build our organizing committee is by having this conversation with coworkers we know and trust. We might not think that a person wants to help us organize, and then ultimately find out that they do, that they're very much in favor and they'd like to support. But the only way to find out is to ask, right? So it helps us form our organizing committee. And then once we're building our super majority of support, we have to talk to every single one of our coworkers and find out whether or not they're in favor. That way we know 100% support, 80% support, 75% support. Ultimately, if there's only 30% support, we won't go forward with a union. We could still trigger a vote, but it leaves it very risky that we will lose. And there's a lot of reasons why losing a vote is damaging. Because you can't try again to organize for another year. And in that time, your boss can do a lot of anti-union talking and ultimately persuade people to vote no matter what. So it'll take a lot of undoing that on the other side. So we ultimately want to win. So once we go public, again, we want to have conversations with your coworkers so that they're well aware of what we're doing, where we're at. We have to keep in constant communication with everybody. So that we can give them all the necessary information that they need, such as our boss voluntarily recognized us, or our boss is forcing us to a vote with the National Labor Relations Board. Did you get your ballot? Have you signed it? Have you returned it? Because a lot of the times, especially when we're working in remote work areas, the ballots will go out through the mail. But I think in Canada, yes, in Canada they have digital ballots now, which is great, but not here in the US. So then also one-on-ones are really important during that voluntary recognition or the National Labor Relations Board election phase, because especially in the NLRB case, so if we have to have a vote, your boss could launch an anti-union campaign. And if people are not aware of what is happening or understanding of the tricks that your boss is probably going to use to get you to change your mind, then they might be persuaded. So securing that supermajority support also secures that we have a strong level of support. And if we do lose a few people to that anti-union campaign, we will still win our union. And then absolutely during negotiating our first contract, because it is very important that we get everyone's input for what goes into our contract, because the contract needs to be ratified by the entire group, which means that once we have an agreement between us and management, we submit it to all of your coworkers and we say, this is the contract we came to with our negotiating committee. And if they don't like it, they're not going to vote for it. And if they don't vote for it, we have to go back to the negotiating table. So we want to make sure that we're addressing everyone's concerns and being considerate of what people need. And the only way we found out all this information is by talking to our coworkers. So having this conversation is necessary and relevant, as the slide says, at every single stage of organizing. So with the IA, our supermajority support level is 80%. That's our strategy to win. And the reason why that number is so high, I mentioned it briefly, but a union can be voted for with just 30% support. You could trigger a vote with just 30% support. But that leaves 70% of your coworkers who you have no idea how they'll vote. And they might vote yes. They also might vote no. So we aim for 80% to really solidify that win. And again, in the instance that your boss launches an anti-union campaign and we lose some support, we still have supermajority support to win our union. And that also shows your boss that if they want to negotiate against us, if they don't want to be, or if they don't want to negotiate in good faith, rather, that they're messing with 80% of us. It's not just a slim majority of half that are in favor. So we have a lot of power in numbers. So showing that we are a strong, powerful, and unwavering front is really important, not only in winning support for our union, but also at the bargaining table. So what are the goals of a one-on-one conversation? We want to make sure that we're getting an accurate assessment of your coworker. We want to know what their priorities for change are at your studio. Like what do they want to improve things in, or what do they want to maintain? So if you're talking to a coworker who's ultimately pretty happy at your studio, what are the things that they want to keep? What are the things that are really important to them at the workplace that would help them continue to be to have a stable career there? They really like their hours, or they really like the retirement plan. Those are all things that we can negotiate for. So it's important to know what exactly it is that they find to be a priority. We also want to help them overcome their fears about what your boss might do and what their rights are under the law. We do have the law on our side under the National Labor Relations Act. So letting people know what their rights are is really important, because most people don't know what they are. And I will go over some of them today. So don't feel like I'm trying to tiptoe around this, but we will get to it. But having a one-on-one conversation is a new learned behavior. It's not something you do naturally. It's not just a casual conversation. But what we ultimately encourage you to do when we're working together on your campaign is to practice, not just with us, but with other organizing committee members. And it also helps to start with folks that you know and trust to have these conversations with, because it helps you practice. And practice makes better, right? Getting these assessments helps us strategize who to talk to, as well as who needs follow-up. So if somebody has a lot of questions that they need answered, getting an accurate assessment of them is crucial to us finding out how to follow up with them. Again, we're also educating people about their rights and what our strategy is for moving forward. And again, there's so much fear about organizing. I hear it every day. But a big part of this conversation is helping them process those fears and letting them know that we're standing together in solidarity and we have each other's backs. And you are forming a very strong bond here, so that when the time does come for you to vote, you're able to stand together and win. A big part of this conversation also is being a good listener. And it's difficult. It's not something that I think a lot of us consciously try to do really well. But we want to make sure that we're listening. So for every 7 minutes that you're in a conversation with somebody, they should be talking. And for the remaining 3 seconds or 3 minutes, oh my God, I'm tripping over my words today. For the remaining 3 minutes, you should be talking. A lot of it is you asking questions. Ask more questions of them and help them process the answers. Again, listening twice as much as you're talking is really paramount to these conversations. So what does listening look like? What does it mean? Does it mean like just sitting quietly and staring off into the distance and just nodding? Does it mean taking notes? I'm a big note taker, because it also helps me personally recall things that people told me. Is it jumping in mid-thought with something that you find really relevant to what they're saying? Or is it repeating something back that they just said to signal that you've heard and understood? Again, like a really key thing here is to ask a lot of questions. So if somebody is presenting a situation to you, recalling that situation and then asking a question about it is a great way to show that you're listening. But being present more than anything is really important. I see it all the time where people have like a bunch of browsers open and I can see like the flash of white on their face when they like switch to a brighter thing. So just be conscious of how you look if you're talking to somebody on Zoom too, you know, because you want to make sure that you're paying attention, because a lot of this conversation is very personal and really important to them, what they're sharing with you. Again, it's a lot of trust, and they could be revealing a lot of pain. So what we're ultimately going to be doing today is breaking it down, and we're about to get started on breaking it down. I was really just introducing the ideas here, and now we're getting into the meat of it, right? Consider what I'm giving you a guide and not a script. I get asked for a script all the time, but this is a conversation, and giving you a script makes it feel robotic, right? Like, you know, when you get like robocalls on the phone and that person has that script that they're reading off to you and you know it's a script. Again, you're building a relationship of trust with a coworker. So reading a script to them is not conducive to that. And what they might be saying to you might not be in line with exactly what I'm going to be showing you here. But if you are interested, I will share a link. I should post it in the chat right now. I will share a link to our rap sheet so that you can download it and have it at the ready. But it goes over these 10 steps and gives you some guides, right? Not a script. Your conversation might go differently. You might not even make it to the end, and that's okay. The goal is to get through as much of it as you can. And the more you practice, the better you get at it. It will feel more natural. I was not good at it when I started either. But it's likely you already have a tendency to do a lot of these things. But we're going to break it down so that you can really understand why we're doing it, and it'll help you be a better listener. So if you're having a conversation and the person asks a question that you don't know the answer to, I highly encourage you to just say, I don't know. It is okay. It's okay to not know. It's okay to say, you know, I'm going to get the answer for you and I'll follow up. And you can always reach out to me at the IATSE or anyone at the IATSE. You can email us at rpg@iatsc.net and ask any question. We're here to help. So if you get a question you don't know the answer to and you'd like the answer, hit us up. Happy to help. All right, here we go. Step 1, setting up the conversation. You're going to get that meeting. And this sounds very easy, but it's a bit complicated. How do you get somebody to sit down and talk with you, especially if they don't even know you? You've never talked to them at work before. You work fully remote. You might not even know what they look like. But the first thing you want to do is make sure that you're contacting them through personal accounts. Non-work email addresses, their cell phone number. If all you have is their Instagram or their LinkedIn or their Twitter, that's an avenue to getting to them, but don't do it on work accounts. Work accounts can be monitored, and we're not trying to tip management off, right? Or, what a rarity, if you see them in the flesh, ask them to take a walk. Ask them to go get a coffee, get a drink after work, whatever you like. So, hey, so-and-so, a lot's been going on at work lately, and I wanted to pick your brain on how we can make our studio more sustainable. Do you have time to meet soon? Or Hey, so and so, I work at this studio too. I was wondering if you had time to talk about how things have been going at work. I would highly encourage you to have this communication verbally or and even better yet, face to face. Face to face, super important. You can get this started on the phone, but you ultimately want to be able to read people's faces because a lot goes on here that you don't get on the phone. And text, you get nothing. Uh, Text can be misinterpreted in 50 million ways. You can read the same sentence 10 different times and have a feeling of it 10 different ways. I always like compare it to dating. Like when you get a text from somebody and you're just like, well, what does that even mean? They just said, okay. Like, you know what I mean? Like text can be really misinterpreted and it's highly edited. And um, we want to make sure that we're having a natural conversation and giving people the space to understand us too, right? But also, one other thing I want to encourage you not to do is to set an expectation of something else that you're looking for as opposed to just talking about work stuff. So, like reaching out to somebody and saying, hey, I heard you know how to use that new software. Can you teach it to me? That's not the point of our meeting, right? We don't want to lie to people. We don't want to like string them along. So, asking them, hey, I want to talk to you about work. We're being straightforward and we're letting them know why we want to talk to them. All right, step two. We're going to introduce ourselves. Oh my goodness. I know this is all like you're like, "Really? This is it?" Yes, this is very important. Who are you and why are we having this conversation today? While you're introducing yourself, the why of while you're introducing the concept of the why of our conversation here, we're not shouting that we want to form a union yet. We want to talk about why we wanted to meet today and what are we going to talk about. Okay. So, hey, Alina Staten, from my experience, we need a voice at work, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about how we can make things better. Or, I've been working as a UI designer here for a while now, and I'm feeling like things need to change for the better. I wanted to talk to you about how we might be able to do that. Or, things at our studio have been going downhill lately. I'm concerned. I was wondering if you had any ideas on how we might be able to improve things. So, you're saying two things here. You're saying that you have concerns, and does your coworker have any idea on how to solve them? You want to hear about what matters to them and then talk about how we can solve those problems. So you might bring up a personal anecdote here of like, man, the health insurance plan just really stinks. I was like trying to get my meds filled and like the prescription fee was like $500. Do you feel similarly? Are there other things at work that you think we could improve upon or you struggle with? Again, I have concerns. Do you have ideas on how we could fix them? Step 3. We're whizzing through this. This is great. We want to identify their issues, meaning what are their concerns about work? What are the things that are important? What do they want to see changed? Or what do they want to not see changed? Again, if this coworker of yours is like real happy with the company that you're at, what are the things that make them so happy? What are the things that they want to hold on to? So what are the top 3 things you want to see improved? Or even just top 1? What are some main issues for you within games? Again, like this person might be super happy where you're at. So like is there like an overall games industry issue that you're finding you'd like to address? Or what are the most common issues you encounter while you're doing your work? What would you change at our company if you could? And again, this is a time where you're going to be listening a lot. You might want to take some notes. People might start telling you things that are associated with a lot of pain they've had at work. Because a lot of pain can be experienced on the job. But also there might be some people who are just like, no, things are great. I love the fact that we have a 40-hour work week and our boss buys us lunch on Fridays. I'm not trying to be snide with that. That is a good thing. But they might be happy with that stuff. So asking them what are their priorities, what are the things that are really important to them. And now we're going to poke the bear. Step 4 is agitation. This person just shared a major issue about work with you. Can you relate to it? And why hasn't anyone done anything about it? So, if so many of us share that concern that you have, why do they continue to happen without any real improvement? If so many of us feel we need to change things, why doesn't management listen? What are the reasons we repeatedly see nothing being done about our issues? Why do they continue to make record profits and then tell us it's not in the budget for us to get a raise or lay us off? You want to agitate around their issues. Show them that you have been listening and ask them why they haven't been able to enact change on an individual level. All right, step 5 is framing it all up. We're showing that we're trying to help them realize that our individual approaches are not able to solve common workplace issues. We're starting to introduce the idea of thinking collectively and less individually, so that they can understand the power that we as workers have when we come together. You want to help people come to the conclusion that a unified effort with all of your coworkers at your studio will get us to the bargaining table to resolve these issues. So, have you raised any of these concerns before? How did your boss respond? Have you told HR about this before? Did they do anything? Is the current system we have in place able to solve this problem? Is quitting the best option we have? Or should we make this job better? If management isn't going to change things, is there anything that we can do? We're asking, again, this person to start connecting the dots. They have a common problem. Management is not listening to us. What can we do to change it? We're also asking them to think about a hard choice. They're starting to think about it now. Do we do something about it? Do we do something about our issues, or do we stay quiet and maintain the status quo? 2 options. So now we're going to give them a beautiful vision of a future where we can have real ways to address our concerns. The solution to our issues is not going to lie with management or human resources. If it worked that way, we wouldn't have these problems, right? So how can we find resolutions to these issues? Do you think that we should have a collective voice to address these issues? And this is like the first point in our conversation where we're like really laying it on thick for the idea of a union. The reason we kind of like avoid using the big U word before this is because there's many misconceptions that people have that unions are third parties, and they operate outside of the will of the people that work under it, which is false. Using this language strategically brings people to the conclusion that coming together collectively is the best path for us to resolve our issues at work. We're not talking about the IATSE stepping in and planting a flag. That's not how this works. We're talking about us coming together and bargaining for improvements on the job. We deserve a seat at the table to negotiate around the things that matter to all of us. Depending upon their answer here, you might continue on with your conversation. They also might be resistant, and that is okay. At this point, you can stop and say, great, well, it was really nice talking to you. I hope I could follow up with you in a few weeks and check in and see how things are going. Because we always want to leave the door open, because even if this person votes no for our union, they will be a part of it. So we want to make sure that they're also involved in the process. And they might also change their mind. They might think about it a little bit or have more questions. So keeping that line of communication is really important. So you might end your conversation here, and that's okay. We will come back to them. We'll talk to them again another time. But the next part is inoculation. It's preparing yourself for the anti-union campaign that your boss may or may not launch. This part is all about educating your coworkers about what your employer might do once your campaign is public. Telling people about these strategies is so important so that they know what they might face in the future. That way, when your boss tries to sway folks away from organizing, people can recognize it for what it is and move forward with a union regardless of it. And a great question to ask is, how do you think the boss will respond when we want a collective voice on the job? What are some of the things you've heard our boss say or do on the job to discourage us from organizing? Should we allow them to negatively influence us with those tactics? Should we allow them to deny us a voice around our top priorities for improvement? You want to ask the person what they think the boss is going to do, because that's ultimately going to help reveal what their fears are about organizing, right? So, hey, coworker, what do you think the boss would do if we said we want to be a union? Oh, well, I think they'd just lay us all off. Well, if we form a union, our boss cannot threaten us with job loss, which is the next slide. I will get to the next slide shortly, but we're providing them with the information to help them overcome their fear and also let them know that we've got their back. We're here to help. We're here to support. We've got one another. We have the backing of the IATSE behind us. We have their legal team here to help in the instance that something does go wrong. Like, we got this. We got this if we come together. We have power in numbers. So following up after listening to their concerns, you want to inform them of what your boss might do in response to us organizing and also what they're legally allowed to do or not do. So the next slide, it's TIPS. TIPS. You can also call it SPIT, but I think SPIT's gross. So TIPS stands for Threats, Interrogations, Promises, and Surveillance. And these are things under the National Labor Relations Act that your boss is not allowed to do. The boss may not threaten to take away your job or your benefits or close the studio or demote you, any of that. They cannot threaten you with unilateral changes to your employment. Oh, well, if y'all are going to unionize, then we'll just have to go back to in person. We're not doing this remote work anymore. Or if y'all are going to unionize, we're just going to go bankrupt and we're going to have to close the doors. They are not allowed to do that. That is a threat. They are not allowed to interrogate you about how you voted for a union, whether you are for or against. They are not allowed to interrogate you about who was involved in the effort or your involvement in the effort. And if they do interrogate you, they might pull you into a 2-on-1 meeting with them in HR. And while you are required to meet with management because it's part of your job, they are not allowed to ask you those questions. They also might promise you things like, hey, Stussy, 5150, you wanted that promotion, didn't you? What if I gave you that promotion and you voted no for your union? The one thing about that is that, say y'all vote no and you lose. On the other side of it, your boss has no contractual obligation to follow through on that promise, and they likely won't. But they're not allowed to promise you things in exchange for voting no. They're also not allowed to surveil you or spy on you. So they might try to install spyware on your computer so they could see who you're talking to, or they might hire or force other executive or lead management folks into spying on you to see who you're talking to and when. Again, they're not allowed to do that. Under the National Labor Relations Act, all this stuff is illegal. So always remember TIPS, threats, interrogations, promises, and surveillance. All right, so now that we've given them the inoculation of what your boss might do, we got to ask. This is so important. All of these steps are very important, but this is so important as well. We have to ask them, would they vote yes? You don't want to leave this conversation until you know where they stand. And that is a yes, a no, or a maybe. They might not be sure. But we have to ask the question because we have to know where they are. So will you stand with a supermajority of your fellow coworkers in voting yes to form our union with IATSE? Or we can win the improvements that you care about if we all come together. Will you stand in solidarity with us and vote yes for a union? This is, however, not the end of your conversation. You don't just get your answer and leave, right? We got a little more work to do here. There's 10 steps. We're almost there, though. But we have to make sure we get this information, because if somebody says yes, great. You want to help? Awesome. Or do you have questions? A lot of people are probably going to have questions. A lot of people are going to be like, I'm not sure. I don't know what this means. Can you elaborate? And you might not have the answers right then and there. So they might ultimately need follow up. We might have to reach back out to them again to talk about this. Or they might say no. And again, that's your right. This is a choice. Nobody's forcing you. Again, but even if you vote no, if we win our union, you will still be a part of it. So it's important that we continue to talk to them. So if they're like, yes, I'm down, we want to give them a task. And it doesn't have to be something huge. We're not asking them to like dig a 10-foot hole. We're not asking them to climb Mount Everest. We're going to ask them to do small things, because we want them to get involved. A union is a very participatory process, even in the most small ways. If somebody does small tasks repeatedly, we should invite them to join our organizing committee, because they're clearly into the idea and they want to help us do the work. So ask them who they think is a good person to talk to. Who is somebody that you look up to at work? This is helping identify leaders, natural leaders at your studio. So like, it's not somebody who's a lead on your team. It's somebody that they look up to and respect on the job, because those people are really pivotal to helping us win our union. Because if they are pro-union, they can also help us reach out to the people that look up to them, and help them become yes votes, right? Or you can just simply ask, is there someone else I should talk to? Because a part of this is like, we don't know everybody. We don't know everybody that works at our studio. We're not on a friends basis with every single person that works with us. I mean, if you are, that is rad. Let's organize. If you're not, which is more common, strategizing who to talk to and who talks to them is really important. So if this person knows that other person, getting them to get us in touch is so important, because cold emailing someone, that's a little tough. You get a random email out of the blue from somebody that works at your company that you've never heard of before. Do you respond, or do you think it's spam? Or your buddy calls you up and is like, hey man, I just talked to so and so on the phone, and I think you should talk to them too. Would you want to like get on a call sometime? Having that like network is so helpful. So even just like a small task like getting us in touch with somebody, so helpful. It'll help us win. Are there figuring out if there's other folks at the company that this person knows and how they can get us in touch with them? Super, super helpful. And then the last step, we want to make sure that we follow up. Follow up is so important. Again, as I stated at the beginning of this training, our one-on-one conversations are paramount at every single phase of organizing at your studio. So we want to make sure that we keep people in the loop of where we're at and how they can get involved, and also continue to assess their support. We also want to remind them that we have each other's backs. We have power in numbers. We are in this together. We deserve a voice on the job. We could do this. So when can we talk again? And offer a date and a time. You want to leave the door open for further conversations. Again, even if they are somebody who's not sure or not a yes vote, we want to keep them in the loop. We want to make sure that we follow up with them so that if they do have questions or maybe they change their minds, that we're there. And we also want to give them an opportunity to follow up on the task that we give them. So if we ask them to reach out to people, following up with them to see how that went. And again, remember, leave them with hope. Leave them with knowledge of our solidarity, that we got this together. We have power in numbers. We are strong. And that's the whole combo. So step one, set up that conversation. Non-work emails, non-work places. If you're on the job, take a walk. Stretch your legs. Go get coffee. Then you want to introduce yourself. Who are you and why are we talking today? We're here to talk about your issues at work. Then identify what their issues are. If there aren't any, what are the things that they are really stoked about? And then we want to agitate around those issues. And also, if somebody's really stoked about something, well, we are at-will employees, and our boss has unilateral ability to change that without our consent. So we want to make sure, again, even if they're super happy, that we're introducing the idea that we can't negotiate for change. And if the boss wants to change stuff, they could just change it at any time. And then we want to agitate around those issues, and we're going to frame it all up to show them like we don't have power as individuals to change things. We need to come together. Give them that vision of the future. Give them the inoculation tips. Remember that threats, interrogation, promises, and surveillance. Ask the question, will you vote yes for a union? Give them a teeny tiny small task of getting us in touch with somebody else, and then follow up with them. Seems easy. The where and the when of this. Again, like we want to make sure that we're doing this on breaks from work, before or after work, in our personal time, and on our personal devices. We don't want to tip off management, and we don't want to get in trouble because we're doing this instead of working. It can be an issue, especially as at-will employees. Personal email addresses and cell phone numbers are the safest way to contact folks so that we remain under the radar. My motto, I'm going to get it tattooed, I swear to God. Keep it secret, keep it safe. If you've talked to me, you've probably heard me say that. And this is all really tiny, but this is a recap. I am going to post a link in the chat to our rap sheet if you would like to download it. Keep it handy for whenever you are having a conversation. And I'm gonna turn off this stream, not the stream, just the thing, and answer any questions from the chat, because I see y'all been popping off. It's great. Let me scroll back up. Hold on. Oh, my music stopped. What happened? Yes. Play my 8-bit, no copyright music. There we go. Okay. Espirito, glad to have you here. A little unclear how to get there. I hope that this stream helped out, Espirito. If you have more questions, please ask in the chat. I'm happy to answer. Also glad to have you here too, Zephyr Zen. You don't need a union. We'll give you a pizza. Boy. I mean, I'd kill for a pizza right now, but not in exchange for a union. I did a lot of recruitment during organizing at a previous employer, and these strategies on communication can work. Yes, definitely, Zephyr Zen. Well, if you do have questions, post them in the chat now. I'll hang out for a little bit. But you can always reach out to us at rpg@iatse.net. If you go to our website, gameworkers.org, you can check out the many ways that you can get in touch with us. We're also going to be at GDC next week. So exciting. I've never been to San Francisco before, so I'm really excited to go. Eat some sourdough. Be terrified of the hills. Yeah, the inclines are scaring me, but we'll see. But also, we're hosting a panel on Wednesday at 3:30. We are going to have a zine at our booth. If you go to, I'll actually put this in here too, linkup.top/gameworkers. You can see all the things that we're doing at GDC. We're having a party on Thursday night you can RSVP to. We're going to have some snacks and some beverages, and having that panel on Wednesday. We will be at our booth all week on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday. I will be on the floor. So if you see me in my gameworkers.org shirt and my neon green hair, which it never looks great in this lighting in here, but I'll be there. So I hope to see you there. Do I have any thoughts, advice, if those conversations or issues revolve more around management decisions and stuff like benefits? In my situation, we have great benefits. But in the conversations I've had so far, the biggest complaints involve higher management decisions like splitting up an already small team into multiple projects and what those projects are. Asperito, I think I'd have to learn more about the situation, but things that could be resolved in a union contract are communication related. So if you feel in that instance that management is not communicating effectively to y'all the way that they're trying to implement stuff for your pipeline, we can form what's called a labor management committee, which is at intervals that you and your coworkers decide. We did it in our Titmouse New York contract. And I think we decided on biannually, so every 6 months. A group of workers meets with management to talk about the current goings on at the studio. What's coming up, where can things be improved, etc. It doesn't necessarily have to be benefits related or money related. There's lots of ways that we can address our concerns on the jobs in a contract. Yeah, I hope that answered. If not, let me know. I will continue to elaborate. Also stoked to see you, Fearless Son. I can't wait. I'll look more into labor management committees. Yeah. If you go out to the Animation Guild's website, all of our contracts are available there, and you can check out the Robin Redbreast contract, which is the Titmouse New York contract. And you can read up on what we negotiated for a labor management committee. Has there been a past stream or plans for a future stream specifically covering workplace toxicity and or inequity? I recognize it's a pretty spicy topic. Actually, Zephyr Zen, we did talk about it. We talked about workplace culture a few weeks ago. We didn't get super spicy with it. But, we definitely recognize that it is a huge topic of concern among game workers, especially recently. Seen a lot of things happening on Twitter and LinkedIn. It's definitely something that we have talked about, and certainly something we can definitely revisit in the future. That should be up in our videos on demand. I think it's called Culture Stream with Andrea. Andrea was an excellent guest. She was fantastic. I can't wait for her to come back, especially because she's also a Pennsylvania resident like myself. Well, we do talk about a lot of things on this channel. And I hope to continue to talk more about more things and more spicy things. I'm not here to be afraid of your boss. So, and I'm not saying that y'all are either, but I know that it's tough to come out and be public about it. But the more we use our voice, the more successful we'll be in organizing. We have power as workers. We have power together. We have power in numbers. And there's so many of us. And it might seem bad right now because a lot of people are getting laid off, but games are going to continue to be made, and they'll need us. They need us to make their billions. And we also need a slice of those billions. With that, I'm going to jump. But it was great seeing new people in here. If you haven't been to our website, gameworkers.org. Stussy says they're trying to futz with our incentives. Oh, I'd love to learn more about that, Stussy. I know there's a big Atlanta game worker force. I was just down there. My bestie lives there. Do I want to see the current bill? Yes, please. Yes, please. But thank you so much. I'm going to check that out right now. But again, we'll be here every week, every Thursday. Next Thursday, we are streaming live from the floor at GDC. Talking to you, talking to us, talking. It's going to be great. Made it through the House and is in the Senate, but not on the schedule yet. Oh, Jesus. Every time I hear those words, it just like gives me anxiety. Made it through the House and in the Senate, unless it's like something that's good, which it usually never is. But anyway, folks, we'll see you at GDC next week, and then we'll be back to our regularly scheduled programming. New background. Trying to make it harder to organize in Georgia. Pass the PRO Act, man. We gotta pass the PRO Act. It's been sitting there forever. Maybe we'll talk about that on a stream. I think that's a good topic too. I hope you all have a wonderful week. If you're coming to GDC, I will see you there. If you're not coming to GDC, tune into Twitch. We'll be here and there at the same time. And if you need us, reach out to us at gameworkers.org or me directly, cfellmeth at iatse.net or rpg at iatse.net. We're here to help. We want y'all to organize. We want y'all to be union. I hope you all have a great week, and I'll see you next time. Bye.